Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is just me today and I am in Carter's office, so it looks a little different. It looks like some of Carter's videos on his channel. But in today's video, I'm going to be talking more about my pregnancy, and we're going to be talking about my similarities and differences between my miscarriage pregnancy and my successful pregnancy right now. I'm currently, while filming this, I'm currently 20 and a half weeks pregnant. I have my anatomy scan a week from today, and this baby is healthy baby boy, and we are so excited for him. I have talked about this in like a ton of my other videos, but I did have a miscarriage back in September. I was 5 weeks when I had my miscarriage, so I went ahead and I decided to record everything and talk about all my symptoms for both my miscarriage pregnancy and my successful pregnancy. Now, I only have up until 5, sorry if you can hear the mini fridge in here. I only have up to 5 weeks, so I don't have anything beyond that because 5 weeks is when I miscarried, and so I just, for this successful pregnancy, I just did up until 5 weeks because you can't really compare it past that because I miscarried at 5 weeks, if that makes sense. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into it. We're gonna talk about the differences first and then the similarities. So with both my miscarriage and my successful pregnancy, I had bad cramps. I had very bad cramps that felt just like my period. That's why both times I just didn't really think that I was pregnant because I was nervous my period was coming, because both of the pregnancies, my cramps were so bad. But there was a bit of a difference. I'm looking at my phone, so if you see me look down, I'm looking at my phone. With my miscarriage, my cramps got worse as time went on until I miscarried. They were super bad the entire time. The whole, like, I found out at about 3 weeks that I was pregnant with my miscarriage and my successful pregnancy. So for about, 3 weeks until I miscarried, my cramps got worse and worse and worse and didn't really fade away. With my successful pregnancy, my cramps were really bad. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you have super bad cramps, that does not mean that you're not pregnant, but my cramps did start to fade and they did become less and less and less. So that was something that I felt like when it was happening, I had never been pregnant before, so I didn't really know. That should have been like alarms going off that my cramps weren't getting better. But yeah, and every pregnancy is different. Just a disclaimer, you could have cramps the entire time of your pregnancy. You could bleed your whole pregnancy. Just because I experienced this doesn't mean that you will or won't. So I just want to say that. But yeah, with my miscarriage, my cramps were worse, or they lasted longer. The cramps were both intense, or the cramps were tense for both pregnancies, but with my miscarriage, they lasted up until I miscarried. And by 5 weeks with this pregnancy, my cramps were getting less and less. Now, this is an interesting one. I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but with my miscarriage, I experienced extreme hot flashes. So bad, like so bad. I can't even explain how bad. I would get the worst hot flashes and I would have to like literally strip all my clothes, and it felt off. Like, it didn't feel, right. Something was wrong. And like in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm pregnant. That's just what happens, But looking back with my successful pregnancy, I maybe had like 1 or 2 hot flashes, and they did not last as long. They weren't nearly as bad. Obviously, your hormones are changing, and hot flashes are common in pregnancy. But for me, like, they were so bad to where they should have been alarming to me, but I didn't think anything of it. Now, with my successful pregnancy, I started to get like a little bit of tiredness around week 4 and 5. With my miscarriage, I never experienced that. I never even experienced a little bit of nausea. Now, I talked about this in my last video of like my symptoms. I never got like super nauseous or super tired, but I still got nauseous and tired. So it wasn't like I was completely fine. I did experience nausea and tiredness. It wasn't too bad, but with my miscarriage, I never experienced any of that. it was like I wasn't even pregnant. But to me, I was just like, oh, it just hasn't kicked in yet. But with my successful pregnancy, around week 4 and 5, I could tell that I was pregnant. The next one kind of piggybacks off of the last one. Like I said, with this pregnancy, I felt pregnant from the get-go. With my miscarriage, it just, I don't know, something just felt off. It was almost like it wasn't real, and I don't know. And even my family members have even said that like when you told us, like obviously our whole family was so excited and beyond happy, but a couple people were like, you know, something just felt off. And when I got pregnant again, they were like, this is it, like this is your time. So it was kind of like an intuition, but I didn't want to believe it because it took me so long to get pregnant the first time that I just didn't want to, you know, be like, oh, I don't feel pregnant or something's wrong. Okay, so bear with me on this one. This one might be a little confusing. So ever since I started a fertility medication back last spring, after getting my cycle back on track, my boobs would hurt the day after I ovulate up until I started my period. So that was kind of a really bad symptom for me because I couldn't really, like a lot of people get sore boobs and they're like, I'm pregnant. I couldn't do that because my boobs would hurt right after ovulation and they'd hurt up until my period. It was like right when I got my period, my boobs stopped hurting, and I don't know, it was weird. So with my miscarriage, my boobs did hurt right after I ovulated and then stopped hurting once I found out. So it was kind of almost like my period, where my boobs hurt up until my period. Well, my boobs hurt up from ovulation up until I found out I was pregnant, and then it stopped. And when I went into the doctors after I started bleeding and I had to go in to see, like, confirm I was having a miscarriage, the first thing she asked me was, do your breasts hurt? And I said no. And I could tell, like, she was like, are you experiencing tiredness, nausea, do your breasts hurt? And I said no, and she kind of looked a little worried. This is before she even like checked me out or anything. And there are some people, like my boobs haven't really hurt this pregnancy that bad, so there are people that don't have sore boobs, but it is a common symptom. And I did tell her that they did hurt, but now they don't anymore, so maybe that's what really alarmed her. With my successful pregnancy, my boobs did not hurt right after ovulation, and they started to hurt after I found out I was pregnant. So it was like reversed. Sorry if you hear my dogs. It was reversed, where after ovulation, it was almost like I ovulated, I implanted, and my boobs didn't hurt. So now for future pregnancies, I can look out for that if my boobs don't hurt after ovulation. Okay, so this is a super interesting one. I've heard a lot of people say that they can feel when implantation occurs. With my miscarriage, I felt it and it hurt. It was, I mean, it wasn't the worst pain I've ever been in, but it was uncomfortable. And I could definitely tell it felt different than my period. It just was like an ache in my ovaries on my side, and I don't know, it just hurt. I had really bad back pain. I'm so sorry for my dogs. I had really bad back pain, and just I knew implantation was occurring. I even told Carter, and I was like super hopeful, but it really did hurt. So with my successful pregnancy, I did not feel implantation at all. I was like, I remember saying to Carter, oh my God, I like can't feel it. Like, I'm not pregnant this month because I can't feel it. It's not happening. I felt it last time. And Carter reassured me like always and was like, well, your last one was a miscarriage, so maybe it's a good sign. And it was a good sign. I do know that if you do feel implantation, it can be a good thing. But just for me personally, with my miscarriage, I felt it and it hurt. With my successful pregnancy, I didn't feel it at all. I didn't even know. I mean, like I assumed because I was tracking my ovulation, like, oh, implantation could be occurring, but I didn't know exactly when because I didn't feel it. Okay, so with my miscarriage, I did get a cold and a slight fever. My temperature was like just at 99. I don't know, it was a little high, but it wasn't like 100 fever, you know? And I had a really bad cold, slight fever, and I didn't have that with my successful pregnancy. I did have a stuffy nose. I still have a stuffy nose. I've had a stuffy nose from the second that I found out I was pregnant. But I did have a bad cold and a fever, so I wonder if that had anything to do with it. I don't really know. That's just what I had experienced. With my miscarriage, I found out at 10 DPO. I was 3 weeks and 4 days pregnant, and the lines were super, super faint. That first day that I took a test, which was actually Carter's birthday, the line was like barely there to where we weren't 100% sure. And then we took a test the next morning and it was a little darker, but my lines never got super dark. I never got the dye stealer, I don't know, where the lines are like the same shade, the same color. I never got that. My lines never got super, super dark at all. They were very, very faint. At the time, I didn't really worry about it. But with my successful pregnancy, I found out earlier. I found out a day earlier. I was 3 weeks and 3 days. I was 9 DPO, and the lines were darker. And they kept getting dark and dark and dark and dark. And I finally got the dice stealer or whatever, where both the lines were the same color, and even my test line was darker than my control line. So I was super happy about that. I was very nervous, but I remember after my miscarriage, I was like, my lines never got dark. And I wonder if, like, obviously that was a sign because my HCG levels were not rising and they were falling. And by the time I got to the doctors and got my blood drawn, my HCG levels were back to below 5. My successful pregnancy, I waited and kept testing every 2 days and saw my lines get darker and darker, and I was very, very happy. Okay, so now I want to talk about the similarities with both of my pregnancies. I did kind of briefly talk about this, but the stuffy nose, I've had a stuffy nose the whole time, but I did have a stuffier nose, or I was more sick with my miscarriage. With both my pregnancies, I had a dream the night before I ovulated. With my miscarriage, the night before I ovulated, I had a dream that I was sitting at my parents' house and I was holding a baby boy that looked just like Carter as a baby in a blue blanket. And the night that I ovulated, or the night before I ovulated with this pregnancy, I had a dream that I gave birth to a baby girl. So I feel like it's reversed. So like maybe my miscarriage was a girl and this one is a boy, like, because I dreamed about the opposite gender. I don't know. But I normally don't really dream that much, and I don't really dream that much about like having a baby. I did have a dream a couple weeks ago that he was born on a specific day, but that's been like the only one. So it was really weird that the night before I ovulated, like before my ovulation day, those were the only 2 times I had dreams. Like obviously I ovulated every month, but it was only those 2 times that I ovulated that I had dreams, and then a couple weeks later I found out I was pregnant. So that was really weird. Sorry, I'm getting to the point where I'm like so out of breath when I talk. Like I said before, I had similar cramping with both pregnancies. The frequency was different. You know, like I said, miscarriage, it never went away, and with this one it slowly started to go away, but the cramps were pretty intense. I've had a lot of people say like, oh, I didn't even cramp, they're not even that bad. And I was like, oh my god, like these feel just like my period, like it's maybe a little worse. So yeah, I did experience some bad cramps, and I do normally have bad cramps in my period. I wasn't on birth control. I just like had naturally, my periods weren't super heavy, TMI, but I did get pretty rough cramps, but I just always kind of just, I don't know, lived through it. I don't know. So I did have pretty bad period cramps, so these were pretty bad as well. Now with both pregnancies, I did take Mucinex. I know it's a myth, I know it's an old wives' tale, but the month that I did take Mucinex the first time, I did get pregnant. It was my miscarriage, but I took Mucinex the month I got pregnant and had a miscarriage, the month after that, and then the month I got pregnant again, and it worked. Obviously there was a month in there where I didn't get pregnant, but I was like, it doesn't hurt anything, just gonna try it. I got pregnant the first time with it, so, and the second time. And then with both my pregnancies, I ovulated on the same exact day. I ovulated on cycle day 16. So yeah, I was kind of worried that I wasn't gonna ovulate the same time that I did. Like I didn't know if it was gonna be the same or different or how that was going to be. But I ovulated the same day, got pregnant both times. One was a miscarriage, one was successful. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I love doing these pregnancy videos. I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Let me know if you guys have any ideas that you want me to film or any questions, and I will see you guys in the next one.